Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome to the East West Show. Jack Chow, the East West, with GNE TV. Lots of headache, and the headaches are humongous with North Korea. The Rocket Man, quote unquote, by Donald Trump. That's a good name. Is just getting out of bound. All right. Even though Donald Trump said during his UN speech that he's going to destroy North Korea, yet he says that's the last resort. Right? If there's any other choices, of course, other choices first. So what to do? The guy is not taking a respite. He just goes ahead. So what to do? With my friend, a dear friend, Drexel Smith, a political commentator, we probably want to look into it. So to my friend, Drexel Smith, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Like I said, every time you're here, I feel a little more relaxed because I hope to get answers from you. Hopefully you get answers to this one.
Can we talk about a topic that's easier than North Korea?
No,
if you want answers.
Not for you. Not for you. If it is with somebody else, I'm going to talk about Hugh Hefner. What do you know? Even though you were in the mention invited once by Hugh Hefner.
This is very true.
Yourself, right?
Yes.
And you're in your way.
Yes.
All right, may God bless that man's soul, right? Let's get to the subject. The subject is so head scratching, and nobody has a solution so far. However, you put the thoughts together, then there must be a way. So what's happening? By nature, how do you define? In other words, have we or a human race or United States been encountered in such a situation before?
Yes. I see some parallels between what's going on in Korea to what was happening in Vietnam 60 years ago.
They have anything in common?
Well, Vietnam was a situation where you had a leadership with a tremendous amount of passion to have their country united under the control of the Vietnamese.
The communist.
I'm talking about Vietnamese.
All right.
Let's set aside for a moment the political structure. You had a very passionate Ho Chi Minh and a leadership that wanted to see his country, North-South, united and stand as the old term, the Annanese, before it became termed the Vietnamese.
Vietnamese, yes.
They have a very unique, again, 4,000-year-old culture. Interestingly enough, little was recorded for about 2,000 years, other than Chinese scholars talked about the peoples that lived. Only written history of about 2,000 years. But they have, in their view, a very rich language and culture that they wanted united. And as you know the history, after World War II in the 40s, the government was allowed to be returned to French control. And the north part of Vietnam said, we won't agree to that, and got into a big fight with pushing the French out. Let's roll the clock to the Korea side.
All right, good.
Korea also has a very long history. They have a very different culture. Obviously, it came much from China. But for maybe 2,000 years, they've enjoyed a culture and a language that they were very proud of as their own. And they also, much like China, had an emperor-oriented government. Now you roll the clock forward to the last few hundred years, 17, 18, 1900s, you know, more modern time.
All right.
Korea became under the control of others. The West, and for what, 75 years, the Koreas, as we now know them, were under the control of the Japanese, who invaded and took over. So here you have a Korea that's been divided. Isn't that what we did in Vietnam?
And Vietnam,
At the same
North and the South
parallel.
divided.
And it's divided not because of the people and the culture. I would make an argument that the people would like to be together. The people would like no wall. The people have family and relatives on both sides of this line that was established
All right.
artificially by the power broker governments.
All right. Same as the Berlin, the East or West.
Berlin, Vietnam, and other examples, to where we took, I'm talking about we, the world we. You take a long-standing people with history, language, culture, a way of life, and we divide it through political means.
All right. And the politics has divided them.
The politics divide.
It's not their culture or their
Their
people's
culture is
will.
one. Their families are one. Their language, their customs.
All right.
They love garlic. They love kimchi, you know, on both sides. But it's the political machines
All right.
that divided the country, not the people.
Okay.
So here in the South, for the last 60 years, you have
You're talking about South Korea.
South Korea. You have people that became very robust economy with the open market world.
Very westernized.
Well, they align to the Western world through their markets, but I think from a cultural standpoint, they still look at themselves as Korean. Their language, their culture, their food, their history, they still very much are very proud to be a Korean people. They have invested to bring in Western technology and participate on the world stage. Samsung is one of the largest corporations of the world.
I'm using a Samsung phone.
They have acquired Western technology and are one of the most robust manufacturers of heavy industry in the world. Now, on the northern side is a politically driven society. It has become very militaristic. It's clear that the northern part of Korea has had an agenda for, well, since the Koreas were divided at the end of War II, has had an agenda for a united Korea. Not unlike my example of Vietnam.
Okay.
But the people in the South now have such a robust economy, they don't want any part of being taken over
To dilute it.
with a government that they don't agree with. I believe that the peoples of both sides of Korea want to be together. It's the governments that can't get along.
Are you sure even the North wants to mingle with the South?
I believe so.
You
It's
believe
my
so?
belief.
Including the Rocket Man.
No, he's the government.
Okay, here's the
It's
government.
the government
You're
and the
talking about
military
people.
side talking about
People.
the people.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Good.
talking-
The people.
Let's separate government, people.
Okay. Okay.
My
I
discussion
understand.
is
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the people.
Okay. No. Okay.
You know?
Now, your points are made and made clear. It is politics that divided these countries, right?
That's right.
These countries. Yeah. With that point made, though, what's your next move? What do you want to indicate?
Well,
I'm trying to follow you. I'm
I-
trying to very hard to follow you.
what I'm
What do you
trying
want to say?
the picture I'm trying to paint is the first part of the picture is to understand the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The problem to me is we have a country with a rich culture, history that would like to be united, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue geographically they should be united.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a government in the North that truly wants to be very militaristic and the type of government and society that the South cannot support.
Mm-hmm.
So that has driven North Korea to say, if we want to make our agenda a reality,
Mm-hmm.
forcing the Koreas to unite, the only way to do it is by having a military. The only way to do it is to be the more powerful one.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to do it is to have weapons of mass destruction.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to do it is to get rid of that bad guy that helps the people in the South, USA. And we have become the bad guy because the North,
That's to the northern concept.
the Northern militaristic government looks at the U.S. as having propped up the South,
Mm-hmm.
and we therefore are the big enemy
Mm-hmm.
that they need to deal with.
All right, okay. Not only do they make the South their enemies, anybody who supports the South
Yes,
are their enemies.
yes,
That's their take,
yes.
right? Okay.
And it goes beyond,
Mm-hmm.
because not only has the South aligned to the West via the U.S., but oh my gosh, they're a big trading and economy-based, partnering a lot with the longtime bad guy, Japan, that historically are people that we don't trust because they invaded and took us over.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know?
We understand. I
So
understand. Oh, yeah.
that whole region has become destabilized
Mhm.
because of this fervor, this passion, this have built over the last 60, 70 years, this militaristic government that
In other
now
word-
feels we're strong enough, we're going to go fight.
In other words, both history and the reality in the present now made them an option of isolating themselves
Yes.
from the rest of the world. All right? Okay, my dear friends, today with my good friend Drexel Smith, a political commentator, a brother kind of friend that who I adore so much, I trust so much, we're sharing about the analysis of North Korea. Why do we have such a big headache? Why the headache being such a headache that no one even had a solution to it? So we're just starting with the general picture number one, and probably after this short break, he will lay his picture number two. Let's see. All right, we'll be right back after this short break. Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audience, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. As a matter of fact, today we're discussing about a very huge subject, that is our headache, the world's headache, the human race headache of North Korea. Yes, with my friend Drexel Smith, a political commentator who I respect so much, I trust so much, we are sharing his thoughts about North Korea, the problem, why is such a headache being such a headache. Starting from a historical point of view, he had laid the first picture, which means picture one, confirmed that it is the, it is politics that divided North and the South, and it's the surrounding and the take made them the only option of being isolated from the rest of the world. So, what's next?
Well, to continue to paint my picture,
Okay.
as all of your audience knows, we ended up in a war with Korea's 65 years ago.
Okay.
And the outcome of that was to discontinue the fight and to divide the country
Okay.
and to reaffirm the division that had been created at the end of War II. I think from that point for the next 50 to 60 years, North Korea continued to build and to become more and more and more militaristic.
Militarily stronger and stronger.
Yes, and they continued to focus their economy on being a militaristic state, as opposed to what the South did, was to build an open market type society. And now what you have 60 years later, because the world, and I'm not just talking about the United States, the rest of the world simply didn't pay attention. I think the rest of the world simply felt that the leadership that was there in the 1940s and 50s would eventually retire, move on, pass away. A new set of ideas would come forward politically. The society would become a little more temperate and a little more cooperative. It didn't happen.
All right.
What
That's
happened?
what people hope.
That's what people, I believe, had hoped. So the United States leadership virtually did nothing with North Korea.
All right.
And as North Korea continued to build more and more, and even with their nuclear program, we said, oh, you can't do that.
And again, we say the same thing.
And then we said, no, you really can't do that.
I know, but again, we keep
And then we said, you really, really, really can't do that.
Okay.
And oh, you need energy, here's some money for oil. Oh, you need this, here's that. And we kept putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And for 60 years, we never dealt with the fundamental systemic issue that you have a government led by a regime that is passionate to their core, that their life's ambition is to unite the
also,
country.
in other words, to sum up your view, though, it is us, the rest of the world, watch the problem grow.
We did. And
At the times, we would have stopped it. We didn't do a thing.
we didn't do
However,
enough.
However, what we did was lip service. We said again, strongly, very strongly, extremely strongly, and tremendously strongly.
Yes.
It goes on and on and
Yes,
on.
yes.
We did what we have done.
That's right.
Is only lip service.
That's right. That's my view.
That's how this guy, this regime, gained that much power.
Yes, that's how I see it.
I see.
And it's because I think the attitude of the world was the major countries have this weapon of mass destruction capability that can destroy the country. How much trouble are they going to be? It's a nuisance. They're a nuisance to our friend in South Korea, but South Korea has grown to be so strong economically Let's just move it along. And as the expression goes, we kick the can down the
Down
road.
the road.
Down the
the
road.
road. Yeah, all right.
Well, now the can can't be kicked anymore. Now we have a problem.
Yes, we do have a problem. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're talking about the problem. The problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And yet, are we looking at ourselves? Are we still providing a lip service, or are we getting serious?
Well, now you're into the part of what do we do today in the absence of things that we could have done the past 30 or 40 years.
Long time ago, yes.
Okay? And now the challenges get more challenging. We have a situation to where at the end of World War II, we and the rest of the world said to Japan, we don't want you to become militaristic again. So you have a minimum military only for a limited defensive posture. Your Navy is limited to more of a Coast Guard mission.
Small island.
Yeah. And we will take care of you. And that's virtually what our agreement with Japan was. Minimize your military and we will be your defender. We said to South Korea, you focus on building your economy.
And we'll defend you.
We will defend you. So much of this Pacific region, that has been the U.S.'s position. Well, it has gotten to be very expensive. It's gotten to be a major challenge for the United States to extend itself militarily. And in our country, we are now taking another look at ourselves saying,
we're stretched too thin.
Gee, those were agreements made at the end of War II 70 years ago, both in Europe and in Asia, to end the world's biggest conflict. Maybe we need to revisit this. So along comes a new president, some say on a white horse, some say on a black horse,
All right.
called Yippee
Yeah.
President Donald Trump, who
Want to
says
do something.
we're overextended, we're doing too many things, it's costing too much.
Is he in good shape enough to still do something, or is late already?
Well, in
That's the core issue.
yeah, in retrospect, looking backwards, it would have been a lot easier to deal with North Korea
That I know, yes.
25 years ago. The consequences would have been far less. Today, we have a significant problem, not only because of the threat that North Korea presents itself, but because of this set of relationships that we put in place 70 years ago, that under these treaties, we now have agreements and responsibilities around the world that extend us financially and militarily, that I think our country is now demanding. We want to revisit this. It's maybe not our role in life to tax our people to simply fund a world military. And now all of a sudden, the game has changed. Since the 1940s to 2017, look at who's a major player at the table. One of the most major, sophisticated, most robust country in the world is now China, who is saying, we want to be on the world stage. Russia has sort of come back from the ashes of 25 years ago saying, we want to be on the world stage. So now you have different actors in the play. You have different roles and responsibilities. And now I think what Donald Trump is doing, and I'm getting away from the antics for a moment and the tweets and the talks. I'm just saying what Donald Trump's fundamental question is, we need to change course. We can't be the world's protector. We can't overextend. We need to deal with things different. Maybe we need to revisit South Korea's commitment to their own military. We need to revisit Japan. We need to revisit the strength in Europe.
And according to statistics, U.S. so far has more than 800 military bases all over the world.
Yes, and I think we need to revisit all that.
Our efforts are stretched too thin.
Yep.
So, okay, now, with your analysis all together, I put segment number 1 and segment number 2 together to see one thing. That one, we have, when I say we, I say the world we, right? Okay, same thing. We have, for the past 60 or 70 years, watched the program to grow. I mean, watched the problem to grow.
In North Korea.
In North Korea.
Yes, yes.
And now the problem is so big, well, nothing but extreme efforts could do it, could take care of it.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I think there may be other options.
There are? Okay, anyway.
I would like to
think. And then to do that, you got to look at your own pocket, right? You got to look how thin you have already stretched yourself. So that's why you're saying that we need to revisit what we have done. We have dealt with South Korea, and we have dealt with even Japan, right? So in that case, now we're in between the options. It looks to me, right? Either we attack them, like a quote unquote from Donald Trump, he used the word to destroy, right? Either we destroy them, or we might have something else. Do we not have something else? Let's take a very short moment out, my dear friend. With me today is my good brother Drexel Smith. Drexel is very knowledgeable. He's been a nuclear energy specialist for quite some time. He is a very active Rotarian, and he is very philosophical, and he even wears some kind of Confucius buckle, something like that. All right, so let's take a moment now. When we come back, we'll find out what options do we have, and then we'll compare the two options. All right, stay with us, please. Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show. With my friend Drexel Smith, we're talking about North Korea, what to do. That's why we named the show North Korea /USA. It's gonna be us. Nobody else can do the job, all right? So, what to do? So, except a military act, military attack, right? And when we come back, we'll find how militarily we can do in different ways, right? And between military attack and other ways, other options, what do you think as the other options?
Well, it seems clear to me that North Korea's behavior is like the little guy in the schoolyard that always goes up to the big guys, kicking them, looking to make a fight, but knows that the big guy won't hit him back because he's so small.
All right.
And the big guy tolerates this kick in the shin because it's a nuisance. But then there becomes a day, the big guy is just tired of this schoolyard mischief.
Of that thing.
And he smacks them.
Mm.
We've all seen the schoolyard behavior.
Mm.
I think that's what we see now, that North Korea has fluffed up their chest so much, and they are of the opinion that they can continue to kick the big guy. So I see some facts.
They are still kicking, and yet the big guy is still doing nothing.
Well, it's because, let me go through this challenge.
Mm-hmm.
North Korea militaristically is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Fact.
Mm-hmm.
Fact number 2, they envy South Korea's economic prosperity, but are willing to take it out to unite the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think another fact,
Uh-huh.
the United States is viewed as the primary enemy because we prop up and support the South, as well as the other countries we talked about in the last segment.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes the United States that North Korea is kicking in the shin, looking for a response.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do we respond? Militaristically, for us to take our big toys and our big weapons truly is destructive. And we have agreements for over 75 years that we will not strike first with these kinds of weapons. We said we will not use them first.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
So what are the other options?
Mm-hmm.
I say, and if I was
In power.
making the decision,
Mm-hmm.
I would push a collaborative Russia,
Mm-hmm.
China, US. We need to go together to put the squeeze on North Korea.
Uh-huh.
We three cannot allow sanctions to be misused. What happens is the United States says, oh, let's put these sanctions in, but then there's another door that's opened that allows North Korea to have access to technology and resources they need to exist. If China, Russia, US, and the West in general got together and made an agreement, we're going to isolate North Korea, it would take weeks before they would economically be on their knees. We could do it economically. We could freeze their money, we could freeze their resources.
Which is happening now.
Only
'cause,
to a limited degree.
because
Because Iran is over there
3
giving
days
them.
ago, 3 days ago, news has it that China joined the party with 8 other countries,
Yep.
altogether 80
Yep.
countries, kind of sanctioned the North Korea banking system, and now almost every account is frozen already.
Well, let me finish my notion.
Mm-hmm.
For all of the culture and history in North Korea,
Mm-hmm.
what North Korea does not have
Mm-hmm.
is natural resources to exist.
All right.
North Korea must have access to resources.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have energy resources. They do not have natural resources to exist.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that if the world powers were serious and really got together and didn't leave open back doors for other countries, we could isolate North Korea in a way that it would take a frightfully small amount of time. I'm talking about days and weeks before they would become paralyzed because they don't have resources to exist. But what the world leaders need to do is to set aside their differences and to truly, truly
I
isolate.
understand. I understand. Strategically,
Yes.
you got to understand. You got to see who you're dealing with.
Yes.
You are dealing with a madman, a lunatic,
In North Korea.
a lunatic
Yes.
who doesn't play with a full deck, sometimes a deck and a half, sometimes even half a deck, right? That's the problem. No matter militarily or financially, if the sanction or attack goes to a certain extent, you bring retaliation. What if the guy went crazy? The guy pushed the button.
Oh, then the game changes if he starts.
Yes.
Okay, but
And
here's
then you're talking about a larger scale war.
no.
And it's a nuclear war.
Here's my view.
Mm-hmm.
My view is that if the world truly got together, and I'm talking about Russia exerting enough impact that Iran is not helping North Korea, which they do. I mean, if we truly did the isolation I'm talking about, you would find it in very short order. North Korea would take care of the Rocket Man. North Koreans
North
would say-
Koreans will take care of the Rocket Man.
That's right.
Oh, that's a good view.
I think that right now,
They will oust him.
that's right. But right now, they're too fearful of his power that has been untested
Okay.
since his grandfather. His grandfather handed down to his
A
father, handed to him.
guy who can blow his own uncle with a cannonball,
That's right.
right? Who can poison another uncle with a chemical something in the airport, right? So
He can only do that when he has
no
support.
limit. There's no limit about his evil act.
He can only do
He can't
that
do
if he
anything.
gets away with it and if he's supported. And he's only supported out of fear. But you know, when people get hungry, when people see their country truly isolated around the world, and truly the world was standing together, I say you will have an internal takeover.
They're going to be upright. Upright.
Yes.
You're saying, right?
That's right.
To oust him. Okay, good. People never thought about that. At least I never thought about it. I'm thinking about either sanction or militarily we attack them. Right?
I think that the internal takeover is a possibility. And before we go to your next session, I will share with you a very prominent Navy SEAL, Jaco, made a recommendation. Let's infiltrate North Korea.
Let's what?
Let's infiltrate
Okay.
North Korea with 5 million cell phones and a satellite so they work. And all of a sudden, North Korea has the ability to communicate with the outside world. They will realize they need to take care of their own leadership. I think it's a very clever idea.
To mobilize
It
them.
would mobilize them.
Politically mobilize them.
You see,
Let them
this
see the daylight.
Jack, this kind of government and leadership is what needs to change. It isn't the people of North Korea that have been brainwashed for 70 years.
All right, okay. That's quite something new I've never heard of. And the 5 million cell phones?
We'll find a way to get them there.
Yeah, well, 5 million cell phones is nothing compared to military attack.
Absolutely.
All right, and
Absolutely.
then in the old convention way, at the battlefront, they throw flyers, right? Hey, say you're about to die. Okay, come over here, right? Surrender, something like that.
Yeah. Or if you want food, you want to be fed. We've cut off your ability for food the past month. You getting hungry?
Yeah, come
You
over.
need to do something with your government.
Uh,
You want the food back on? It's getting to be winter. You want the power back on? You want oil?
In other words, to sanction, to pressure, to an extent that the people will feel only two options. Either option number one, we oust him, welcome the rest of the world, the rest of the world, or we die together with the Rocking Man.
Yep. And I would argue that the people of Korea would say this government isn't what they promised. They're not taking care of us. We're hungry. We're cold, and the world is now telling
let
us.
them see daylights. That is quite
Absolutely.
some wisdom. I call it.
How come my third cousin down in South Korea is living well?
Mm-hmm.
Our government's been lying to us for 70 years.
But problem is that they do not know now.
They're completely isolated.
They're kind of in a drum,
That's right.
sealed.
That's right.
All right, very good. Well, that's quite some wisdom. My dear friends, I really appreciate the fact that my friend Drexel is sharing his thoughts with us. And it looks to me there are more options. There's even kind of like a propaganda war, call it that way, right? So let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences, my dear fellow Americans. Welcome back to the discussion. And today is one of the very, very good show that I like with my friend Drexel Smith, a thinker, a think tank kind of man. We shared about the solution, how to deal with North Korea. So we have a rocket man there, and who is out of mind, who is gone lunatic already, what to do, right? So, back to the point, like I said just now, even within the choices or options of military attack, there are different ways. Number one, nuclear attack, right? Number two, conventional attack, but quick, fast, right? Like the Desert Storm, 100 hours or 100 days or something like that. Right? And thirdly, we're talking about assassination, like handpick a guy or two, something like that. So among the three, which do you think you will be for?
Which do I like?
Yeah, which do you like better? Among the three.
Oh gosh. Jack, I'm not sure that I'm the right man for that question.
You are so far.
Yeah, my answer is I think the world has existed for 72 years with the idea that weapons of mass destruction are so sinister, and be it some kind of poison gas or nuclear, the concept of mad, mutual assured destruction between the major powers has kept anybody from pulling the trigger. I think my personal point of view, so we don't lose the planet, I think we should do everything possible not to get engaged in those kinds of weapons.
The nuclear weapon.
Any kind of major mass destruction weapon. Now that would be my personal point of view.
How about traditional war?
Well, I'm talking about
traditional military attack.
Weapons of mass destruction would include ABC, atomic, biological, and chemical. Those types of weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, forget those. We're talking about conventional.
Regretfully, North Korea has a very robust, and they like to show off, a robust 1.2 million to 1.4 million standing military. Is it capable? I'm going to make an assumption that it is, and that's an enormous army. That I think that even if all of the world got together, even if China, Russia, the U.S., and everybody stood together, that kind of war just would be terrible and ugly, and a horrible loss of life for everybody. And you'd only be fighting that war to get rid of a madman.
I see your point.
Okay, I mean, you really want to spend those kinds of resources
for one guy
to eliminate a
you
madman?
trade in with $1.5 million, right?
You know, so
Yeah. All right. Good. I see your point.
if I really had the three options you presented me,
Mm.
I would absolutely not consider the last option at this point.
You mean assassination?
In terms of
You will not consider assassination, or
no,
you
no, no.
would?
The last choice to me would be
Oh, you mean
mass
last
destru-
option? Yeah.
would be mass destruction.
Okay. All right.
My first option would be to do whatever I could, would be to remove the leadership. If I couldn't find that there's no way I can work with the leadership,
To remove the leadership includes the possibility of assassination.
that's right.
How do you support assassination?
Well, I think in this particular case it may be warranted. That's a personal point of
It
view.
may be work.
It may be hard to do, but I don't think it would be unwarranted.
Maybe not unwarranted.
I think it would not be unwarranted. It would be warranted.
It will be warranted.
It would be legitimate. I mean, we have a truly a third generation, and this one seems to just really be completely out of control.
I came across analysis the other day, a very nice article talking about the structure of their 1.5 million military guys, right? So they say they checked about different levels, from bottom up or from top down. The conclusion was that if an attack or a war breaks, no one can guarantee that this 1.5 million will fight for him. And possibly some barrels will turn 180 degrees to shoot back.
Well, that would be your hope. But remember, you now have 4 generations of people that have been raised in that environment of North Korea with very little information about the rest of the world. And it's you're not dealing with normal people in the sense of being informed, knowledgeable, and to make decisions. I think what would be very interesting is if Russia would decide to amass some of their military strength on their border with North Korea and
which means?
And say, Mr. North Korea, we too are unhappy. I think it would make North Korea very nervous to all of a sudden find that one of their longtime friends has become an adversary.
Russian has said nothing yet. Russian has said nothing yet.
Well, that's why I mean, I think time has come that we communally in the world need to recognize this madman is too destabilizing. I think for the past 30 years, too many of the world leaders have allowed North Korea to be a pawn on the game. You go keep kicking that big guy on the shin.
Go so free,
you know,
and challenge to everybody. And no retaliation,
but
no lessons learned.
I think time has come. It's to nobody's interest.
And on the other hand, everybody he kicks somebody's butt, though, he gets a word. Okay, here's $100 million for your grain, or money for your oil, something like that.
That's right.
So it's awarded.
That's right. That's right.
The capitulation was taken as an award. So it was wrongly understood, wrongly indicated. So, like you said, the problem we watch grow. Not only we watch grow, we keep watering.
Well, I commend our Secretary of State Tillerson because I believe that he is on the track of amassing the support of the world leaders. And I'm hopeful that the world leadership will come together for a complete and total isolation of North Korea. Because I think we could take them, if we did that completely, they would be on their knees in weeks.
When you say the world, do you recommend something at the UN level or something like the G, whatever, G5, G6?
Yeah, the G, I guess they're up to 9 now or whatever. I would use every means that I could. I would find it wonderful if the UN became effective. They haven't proven to be.
No.
I think
that's
this
why
is,
I'm asking.
I think this is a game for the world leaders to say, at the end of the day, this isn't helpful to any of us. This inhibits all of us. We're all better off. So let's get around the table and see how we can isolate this country to the point that the country says, we've had enough. We need to change our government.
Now that you are a scholar that belongs to the Confucius School, I might have to mention something. The best war art, right, is to win a war without artillery.
Well,
In other words, win the war without having to fire, something like that.
yes.
Now that to compare all your options, I really, honestly, like your sanction together in the collaboration of sanction. This sanction means a serious sanction to the most extent, to cut to the bone, that
Yeah.
kind of sanction,
Well,
to the extent that the people there would either die or upright.
and think about this, Jack. North Korea brags about this gigantic military. Today's military runs on two things: food for their soldiers and energy for their vehicles. What would happen if North Korea
Food and energy.
didn't have the food and the energy if we cut the oil and their tanks couldn't run?
Yeah.
Think, Jack, if the world got together and the big players even told the little players, you can't play in that sandbox
But
anymore.
the question is that
we can make it happen.
will the world get together?
Well, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep the world players together and not alienating them.
Okay. One last question before I forget. I really have to ask you because you are a nuclear energy specialist. Talking about nuclear contamination, something like that. Suppose if somebody did bomb their nuclear facilities, would that the radiation leak as to damage the world?
Well,
Or you just debilitate it, that's it.
yeah.
Or they say debilitation might cause a leak. So where do you stand?
Well, remember, radiation occurs naturally. Radiation is in the rocks. You get radiation from the sun. The good news about radioactivity is the fact that it has a short life. It's called half-life.
You have life, yeah.
And depending on the type of radiation, the half-life can be more or less. Some types of radiation can be stopped with a tissue paper. Other types of radiation not. So depending on the event that you're talking about, contamination could be somewhat local, or contamination could contaminate a larger area with dust and particles and move around. So my answer to you would be, it would depend on the weapon that was used and what happened as a secondary with that result.
All right. Okay. Very good. All right. We're over time, but I'm really gonna ask my editor to keep him there and then cut me off. All right, my dear audience, thank you very much. To my friend Jackson, thank you very much for sharing, and I'm very happy.